Last year, between the two companies, between our bulk side and our depackaging side, we were just under 3 million tons.
3 million tons.
3 million tons between Oregon and Washington. That went to animal feed versus somewhere else. Landfill.
Or compost.
Compost, whatever.
This is the Real Food, Real People podcast.
Okay, so food waste in our food system is a big concern right now. Lots of people are talking about it, but no one seems to be talking about a solution. Well, a solution is already happening, and it's happening right here in the Pacific Northwest, in Washington and Oregon. And this week's guest is doing it, and he wants to roll out what he's doing across the entire country and change this food waste issue that we have in our system forever. His name is Luke Dynes. He's a farmer turned entrepreneur turned food upcycler. And we talked with him on a dairy farm in Sunnyside, one of the clients that he works with. It's incredible what he's doing. He's developed technology that nobody else has, and he wants to change the food waste problem we have once and for all. You're going to enjoy this conversation, getting to know Luke Dynes. Do want to thank our sponsors. Brand new sponsor for the next couple of weeks is the Washington Shakeout, the Great Shakeout. It's coming up in October, 10/21 on 10/21. What does that mean? At 10:21 a.m. on October 21st, the Shakeout happens. It's an earthquake drill. Drop, cover, and hold on is the message they want you to remember. And you need to be prepared for this because we live in earthquake country here in Washington and the Pacific Northwest. We know one day the big one will arrive. We don't know when, but it will happen. And there are tiny earthquakes around here all the time. All it takes is for one of those. I mean, we don't even need to wait for the big one. A smaller but still significant earthquake can be dangerous, and you need to know what to do. Go to shakeout.org/Washington. Find out more details. Again, it's at 10:21 a.m. on 10/21, October 21st. Be prepared for the Washington Shakeout, and then also find out more details on other emergency preparedness steps that you can make sure to take. Also, Mana Insurance Group, interesting to follow up. They're all about planning ahead as well, rather than waiting until things go wrong and picking up the pieces. A company founded by a high school classmate of mine, great guy, and I know a lot of people on their team as well. Really trust those folks, and that's where I have my insurance, and I would urge you to connect with them if you can to find out what they can do for you, whether it's home insurance, whether it's for your farm, your business, life insurance, you name it. They can work with you on medical insurance issues as well, and of course auto. Talk to them at Mana Insurance Group, manainsurancegroup.com. Also, Dairy Farmers of Washington supporting the podcast. We appreciate their support, and we appreciate the work that they're doing every day to highlight the excellent dairy products, high quality stuff that's produced right here in Washington State. And as well, show you the farmers, like we do here on the podcast, show you the real farmers producing dairy here in Washington. In fact, you can get a full virtual farm tour on their website, wadairy.org. Go check it out. And thank them, and thank Dairy Farmers of Washington for sponsoring the Real Food, Real People podcast. I'm Dylan Honcoop. This is our continuing journey to get to know the real people behind the food we have and produce here in Washington State.
So somebody who would see your listing would say, oh, well, that's like a trucking company, which in my mind, hearing a little bit about what you do, that's like calling a farm a tractor driving company or something, right? Like there's so much more to what you're doing. How do you describe it?
Yeah, so we face that a lot because we own a lot of trucks just to facilitate the moving and the ebbs and flows and everything that we do with the process. But we're not a trucking company. We do absolutely maybe 1% of our business is a custom trucking business. The rest of it is we own every product we haul almost every load we haul, we buy it, we process it, we trade it. And that's how we manage our quality control. That's how we manage that our customers have consistent outbound coming out of the processing plants. And that's how we also manage that our customers on the sales side have consistent supply coming in. And that's how we get to have our hands in the understanding of quality control, so we understand what we're doing. And then we have our depackaging side of things, that it's really, we're picking up feed at a feed supply place, no different than somebody would pick up feed at the feed store. When we're picking up feed at the French fry plants, or the dry good plants, or the ingredient plants, or the distribution plants for the grocery stores, to us, we're picking up feed. No different than anybody else would go to the feed store and pick up a feed bag.
So you're like I don't know, again, like what you would call yourself, but I would say like food waste recycler.
Yeah, I mean, we don't like the food waste side, because it's not waste to us. It's feed to us, right? Yeah. So it's not really a waste. It's
just like dairy farmers talk about manure. It's not waste.
Yeah.
It's nutrients that you need.
Exactly. So to us, we don't like the fact that there's not another term yet. Like we're really working on a term, because we don't. Food waste to us is the scraps that come out of off your plate at the end of the day at dinner. And that's food waste. That's something that nobody ate. That's something that nobody wanted. Like that goes to a compost or a digester or something. What we do is not waste. It's feed. We just get it in a package, whether it's a 50-pound box or a 50-pound bag or an 8-ounce single serve. It's just packaging for us.
So it's like food that's expired or something that they couldn't sell?
Yeah. So for us, a lot of what we get is something that, maybe a cold storage maybe they had an electrical problem and they couldn't guarantee that they kept human consumption feed to a certain temperature for a long time. We just got a call yesterday that there was a dry van that shipped 300 miles, but when it got to where it went, they didn't, their reefer wasn't working. Well, the driver didn't know it, went out partway there. Well, they can't guarantee it. So human consumption rules and us as consumers don't want to buy that. So there's quality control checks. And when it gets quality control checked out, then where do we go with it? Well, do we go to the landfill, or do we go to somebody that wants to buy it for feed? Right. And we manage it as feed. I mean, to us, it's feed.
And it stays in the food system.
Yes.
It gets fed to animals.
Yeah.
And ultimately still becomes food.
Yeah. It's literally the best upcycling process you can get. We just put a stage in there that we can make it into feed without having the quality issues. And we went through a couple of years of trying to find a machine that would do what we wanted to do, to be able to depackage these feed products and not have, garbage or plastic or whatever in it. And we could not find one that's manufactured. And with our other company, our trucking company, we own a full-fledged fab shop and CNC machines and the whole works. So I said, we're going to build one. So me and my boys and my partner, we spent months in there building one and testing one. And 3 years later, we have one that makes the quality with the clean, no trash, we got it to a spec that we could process it and have feed to us. And to the rest of the world, it was garbage. To us, right. It's feed. And we've been able to manage that through quality control and building the equipment and patenting the equipment and processing the equipment, because we couldn't buy it.
So no one else anywhere is doing it like this?
Nobody has the equipment we have. There's a lot of depackaging equipment available, but that depackaging equipment has a lot of residue in it. Depending on what machine you get, it's either spinning it and making little pieces of plastic and whatever in the process.
You cannot be feeding animals plastic.
No, you can't do that. And so for us, we had to develop the product where we were opening it. We had to develop the machine where we were opening the packaging, not shredding the packaging. And so it took us, we're on version 8 3 years, we're on version 8. We literally scrapped 7 of them. So that's where it took us some time and some dedication to do it. But
that can't be cheap to go through that process either.
No. Luckily for us, it's all in-house. And, as most farmers, my time's free, right? Like I don't really do it. But outside of feed and agriculture, my hobby is the shop, the fab shop. Like that's where I go to get my head cleared. So it was a fun thing for me and my boys and everybody to do, to just develop, because that's like that's my favorite place to be.
That's actually how I grew up. On my farm with my dad, we both loved to fabricate in the shop, and we didn't do anything too sophisticated, but we would love to dream up new ways of doing things and then build it.
Yeah,
it's fun.
That's exactly what we did. And the way it started was late 2017. We had a customer that we do bulk byproducts for out of their plant that called. Their normal hauler that hauled it to the landfill didn't have equipment, so they called us to do it. And they had like 13 semi-loads. And we were like, man, what?
Of what? Like what are these kinds of things?
Palletized 2,000-pound pallets of French fries.
Like in the pallets or in like individual packages?
They were 5-pound bags inside 50-pound boxes stacked on 2,000-pound pallets.
And they had gone bad.
And they got outdated. They QA'd something. Some reason they had to go to the landfill. And I said, well, you know what? Yeah, we'll haul everything to the landfill. Can I have 3 loads? Like, there's a better way to do this. And I'd been in the byproduct out of processing business for 10 years when that happened. And I said, well, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a way we can reuse this. And so we took those loads and we started developing process around, okay, how do we do it? And our first one was pretty rudimentary. We had 3 people opening boxes, dumping it, and doing it. And then we said, well, we
by
can't.
hand.
Yep. Right. We made it so the packages were getting opened mechanically, but the boxes had to be opened by hand. And then we said, well, that's not going to keep up. That's not going to cover what we needed to do. So we just kept redeveloping and trying, and some of them didn't work at all, right? Like you try it, you're excited, it takes you 3 weeks to build it, and you get there and nothing. It literally does not work. And you're just, okay, back to the old one. We'll try that again. And then you just keep going and trying to develop it and try to grow the process through. And we came up with the one we had because we built the piece of equipment for something else that we were doing in, the potato world, in the whole potato world, because we wanted to size potatoes. And so we built this piece of equipment, and one of my employees said, maybe we should just try that. And he took it upon himself to fire it up and try it. And he sent me a video of it running a product through it that we needed to run through it. And he said, you already built what you needed to build. You just need to perfect it. Like, here it is.
That's awesome.
And I was like, you're absolutely right. We're gonna hone in on that one. Like, what are we doing? So version 6 was a better version of that thing that we built for doing another project. And now we're on version 8. And, what that showed me was, as a company, we really try to listen to our guys and the guys that are doing it and open-minded, and those guys that do it every day are the guys that really know, right? And so we try to listen to them and train them and work with them, and they train us sometimes, right? So they teach us a lot of things, and it's just over the last 3 years has really become a really neat deal. I'm proud to say, like, we were struggling with one part of our outfeed system, and I said, this is how we do it. And my 12-year-old was in the shop, and he was like, Dad, that doesn't make sense. You should do this. And I'm like, absolutely right. We should do that. Like, it's fun. So my guys tease me that my 12-year-old is the one that perfected the equipment.
I have been that 12-year-old, not on something that fancy, but I have done that before, and that's an awesome feeling as a 12-year-old. Tell Dad, and Dad says, maybe that will work. Well, let's try it.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It makes me proud as a dad, but like it made me question my intelligence for a few minutes that it was that simple to fix that. But that it's really just been a group effort of all of our guys and family and everything to get it done, and a lot of long hours.
So packages of what? Like you talked about French fries. What other kinds of things do you guys get in packages that is outdated, can't be sold for human consumption, and open? You guys open it.
So we do anything from refried beans to single serve milk cartons to gallon milks to creamers to lettuce single heads to pineapples. I mean, we do anything that you see in the grocery store. We handle that. We have a different process for glass, but we don't obviously feed meat to animals because that's a no. Yeah. But anything in a package that is not meat and that is not in a glass package, we handle that. And
cows eat it. What else are you feeding it to?
100% cows. 100% cows.
And they'll eat all that different kind of stuff.
It's all about testing, right? It's all about nutrition. Just like we have nutritionists for us individually, every one of those dairies, every one of those feedlots, every cow guy that's feeding cows, like if they're doing it, they've got a nutritionist that's telling them how to do it, right? They're testing it. There's literally science and testing, and just like we do for our kids,
look at the carton and see the nutrition facts, and fat, protein.
Yeah, it is carbs, what it is, right? I mean, we send our kids to school, and the schools have a nutritionist that says this is what they should eat for lunch, and that's what their school lunch is. Yeah, the dairies have a kitchen, right? Like it's maybe not commonly known, but the commodities area is known as the kitchen. Mm-hmm. They blend lots of different products together to come up with the right nutrition value to get that cow the best nutrition they can get so that they can do the best job they can do for the dairy farmer. And same thing for feedlots. Like they understand it. And we have some products we don't sell to dairies that we sell to feedlots because they're better fit for feedlots. They're not good for dairies, but they're, for what they're trying to do with the cow, but they're better for what the feedlot's trying to do with the cow. So it's really understanding the best use of the product and working with the nutritionists that tell us where we should go with it. And that's how we decide what we do. We keep every product individual until we decide where it's going. Sometimes we blend it. Sometimes we mix it with 2 or 3 products to make a consistent product that those feeders can feed consistently with the hay and the silage and everything else they're feeding. So yeah, it's...
Other than meat, is there anything in the grocery store that cows won't eat?
Oh man,
I guess they ended up eating kind of like humans.
Right.
Well, plus, corn silage and grass silage and triticale and things like that.
Exactly. I mean, we haven't stumbled across anything, right? It's all, as a diet, it's all sugars and starches and carbohydrates and roughage. And I mean, we all need it, right? I mean, whether we're cows or humans, we're all eating the same balance of, there's a certain balance that makes us want sugars and starches and roughage, and that's really proteins. And that, I mean, I can't think of anything right now coming out of the grocery store that doesn't go to it, that can't be useful in a cow.
So how much outdated or whatever, for whatever reason, rejected food, and again, I don't want to call it food waste, even though that's what it's commonly called, but as you're pointing out, it's not waste because it's totally usable. How much of that are you dealing with every year?
Right, just in our depackaging line right now, we're averaging somewhere around 52 to 56 semi-loads a week. And we capture from weight in, we do it weight in, weight out. And so our recovery is about 87%. So we get 87% of the weight that came in. So if you bring 100 tons in, we're getting 87 tons out to go to feed. And then we're getting 13 tons that goes to a landfill or a recycler.
Right.
So it's a big it's a big difference
rather
on-
than
on
all
what
of it
we're
going
doing.
to the landfill.
Correct.
So in a year, how much food are you keeping from going to a landfill?
I mean, I'd have to do the math, but I mean, you're talking
Millions of pounds.
last year between the two companies, between our bulk side and our depackaging side, we were just under 3 million tons.
3 million tons.
3 million tons in the between Oregon and Washington. That went to animal feed versus somewhere
Landfill.
else. Landfill
Or compost.
Compost, whatever. We moved just under 3 million tons last year.
Now, is there some of that stuff that you can't recover as animal feed that then goes and is composted?
Yeah, so we have a compost site and we send, the meats, we send the stuff we recover out of the glass containers, that type of stuff, we'll send that to compost. And that's
Which isn't a bad use of it either.
whether it's ours or somebody else's compost,
Yeah.
we send it to compost to make sure that it's used and can happen. There's some things that we have to reject due to pathogens or something that we can't use.
Yeah.
And that goes to the landfill. And there's certain landfills like the one in Boardman, they capture all that gas and they put it back into making electricity. And so it's really about good partners and who you're trying to work with to try to make it the best you can make it, no matter what it is. And so there's just some things we can't do, but we want to have good partners that we do it with. And that's what we're shooting for.
Well, you hear so much about, again, back to the term food waste, and it's such a problem, and what are we going to do about it? And, I read, it comes up often in, like food system, articles about the food system, articles about environmental issues. And in my experience with the reading that I do, it's often just kind of left out there like, it's this big problem. What are we going to do? People need to be more careful, when they're buying food, not to waste so much or something. When you understand the whole system, that's not where most of it comes from, for one. And number two, they don't really offer much in the way of solutions when you have a solution right here and you're doing it.
Yeah, I think so. With DEQ, I've read a lot of their numbers, and off the top of my head, I think they say somewhere towards like high 40s% of food waste is created during transportation and transloading. And that happens because we as consumers, we don't want it, right? The forklift goes into the truck to move the pallet out, and they stab the fork into a 2,000-pound bag of flour. Well, the food processor can't sell that as flour.
They're like, most of it's good. We'll put it in new bags. No, the whole
they
thing.
They can't do it. They got to go. So what do you do with it? You got to find another use for it, or you got to send it to the landfill. I mean, that's we as consumers have made the regulations and the rules so tight on these guys that we are creating over 40% of the food waste because of their rules and their regulations they have to follow. We aren't really into the post-consumer food waste program. That's not what we do. We do the pre-consumer, the grocery stores, the retail, the processors, the transportation. I mean, we work with transportation guys that when they have a wreck on the freeway,
what are you going to do with all that?
What are you going to do with all that stuff that lands on the freeway? Well, they didn't plan on it. Well, we go in and we take it and we process it and we turn it back into feed. So we're focused on the 40-some% that happens before consumer. And then we don't do the retail. We don't do the restaurants. We don't do individual homes. We don't
Which
do
there
that
are
type
like
of thing.
municipal systems that are developing for that, and they're getting like composting programs and things like that for that end of food waste. But you're all before that.
Yeah, we're focused on
the chain.
everything before that, and we're trying to really get people to understand that it's a commodity at that point. It's still got value as long as it's still in a package and it's still got quality control, and we can still understand it, and we can test around it, and we can guarantee that it's not mixed with meat or it's not mixed with something that's not going to be healthy for the cow, not going to override regulations. Then we want to make it back into a commodity that still has value and still drives value. And we're talking some of the stuff that people would call food waste, has a value of anywhere from 30. I think the cheapest thing we sell is maybe $35 a ton. And the highest thing we sell is over 200 a ton. And prior to us recapturing it, it's going to go to a landfill. So if you think about the amount of economics that's behind that and the amount of revenue that the food processors, and you want to talk about inflation and how prices of food gets expensive and everything gets expensive, those guys have to pay every day, every time they have a problem, versus having the ability to take it somewhere that's going to be either cheaper or pay them to take it is a big deal. We all have bills, we all have expenses, and to be able for them to drive value out of what they would have had to throw away is a huge expense.
If there isn't value there, then it is going to become waste.
Yeah.
And then it is going to become an environmental negative. So that value actually drives the environmental benefit.
Yeah, we talk about greenhouse gases all the time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about landfills, and we're talking about cows, and we're talking about cars, and everything that creates these greenhouse gases. At the end of the day, we need to be talking about, we can't deny cows create greenhouse gases, but what we can talk about is if I moved 3 million tons last year that didn't go to the landfill, that didn't create a greenhouse gas, that didn't just sit there and rot and become nothing, and those cows ate 3 million tons worth of product, do they get a credit for the gases that they made because they saved that 3 million tons from making gases as well, because it's all now doubled up into a cow? I mean, we've drove value out of it, and you're talking about a feed that otherwise we sell our product against contemporary feed products, corn silage, grain corn, hay. We have to compare it against something to come up with a value. When you do that, we're taking something that was going to go to waste, we're creating a commodity out of it, and now we're like it. I don't even know. We're working on the process with some people to figure out what our neutral point is. Mm-hmm. But we at least have to be at zero at the point that we get it, because we didn't take any extra energy to make it. We didn't get anything. It was already made for human consumption. So,
are you getting attention? Is this on anyone's radar screen for the climate benefits? If that's what people are worried about, that's what you're doing. You're like, the rubber has met the road.
Yeah, no. So we don't do that because until maybe 6 months ago, to us it was just the right thing to do. Right? It wasn't about let's get the attention, let's try to show everybody how great it is, until we didn't understand that it was a big agenda. We were just trying to do the right thing by our customers. We were just trying to do the right thing by our vendors. We were just trying to do the right thing and make sure that it went to the highest value that it could go to, because all the energy, all the fuel, all the time, everything that went into growing that potato or making that bean or that lettuce or whatever, it was already there. And if we didn't recapture it, we didn't use it for something, then it was a waste. And it was just unnecessary work. Well, now we're understanding that not only was it necessary work, it was unnecessary emissions. It was not unnecessary everything. Between the freight and the planting and the harvesting and the fertilizing and everything, there was just a lot used there. Now we're being able to recapture that, so it's not wasteful. It's beneficial, and every ton we pull out of that realm replaces a ton that has to be grown. So how much more are we saving now? Because we're taking something that didn't get used, making a use out of it, and replacing something that we were going to have to put the time into planting, fertilizing, watering, harvesting, marketing, shipping. There's just a ton of time that we save now on the other side. And that's really, we haven't done that calculation. We don't know what it is.
So you said you're doing it just because it's the right thing to do, and you're developing this business up until 6 months ago. What changed 6 months ago?
Really, I was just watching some political agendas on the the green movement and everything.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, I wish people just understood that there are people out here that are just doing it because it's the right thing. It's not because there's some agenda behind it or anything else. It's just the right thing. We have customers that have been supporting us for 11 plus years just because it's the right thing to do. It makes economic sense. Nobody wants to see it go to waste. I mean, even the landfill people we deal with that we talk to and we have to send our products to, they don't even want to see it go there. Like if there's a better use, make it a better use.
Yeah.
Like they're not saying, well, you have to send it all to us. Like they're not doing that at all. Everybody understands it's just the right thing to do. So, the political agenda is what really made us go, wow, we should really start educating people on the fact that there are people like in agriculture. We understand animal husbandry. We understand how to take care of the planet. We understand how to take care of the ground because that's 100% of our livelihood. That's what we do every day. And that's really why we started kind of changing our mindset and wanting to get out there and reach other regions to make sure that they understood, because in the region we live in, the Columbia Basin, it's natural. Like this is just what we do every day. Other areas, it's not that way. So we're trying to give that same benefit to those guys.
That's interesting because like I was saying earlier, in all the reading that I do, it's usually presented as a problem without a clear solution. And you're saying that's not necessarily the truth. There is, maybe not for all 100% of this food waste issue that people are concerned about, but for a big chunk of it, you're saying there is a solution. You're doing it here, and it could be done across the country.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, if you look at, you can take potato, for example. The potato processing, the people that make all the French fries and do all that, it used to be this big, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it was a big issue. There was just so much of it around. Land applying it, we didn't know what to do with it nationwide. Like there was just, well, now you have industries like the pet food industry, that there's industry built around drying it and making it into an ingredient that works for the pet food, works for the dairies, works as a supplement for starch. Like there's all these industries that have developed around, let's figure out how to use it so that it's not a problem anymore. Like we are literally stepping up to fix our own problems because it's the right thing to do in business, and it's the right thing to do with all the extra energy we've put into it. So it's, I think the majority of the issues we see in the food waste realm, as you would call it, are solvable for the majority just by using common sense and understanding and having some people not take the easy button and just put some time into it.
And they talk about food waste like something like 30-some%. I forget the specific number, but I think it was in the 35% range of food is food waste or something. Again, you don't view most of that as waste. And a lot of that probably does happen before the consumer end of it, and that's where you're playing ball.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard numbers anywhere from the high 30s to 50%.
Really?
That they say is waste, from what's grown on the farm to what meets the table. And, who knows what's right? Who knows what's not? If you see the portions that we get, individual portions now, they're a lot smaller. And I think that's probably helping with the food scrap problem when it comes off your post-consumer table, right? Like we're having smaller steaks, we're having smaller potatoes, we're having smaller everything. Prior to that, the best thing we can do is understand how to get, food processors, food handlers, distribution centers, the chip companies of the world that are going into Walmart and pulling out chips that are out of date. Like, okay, well, they're pulling them off the shelf out of date. What are they doing with them? Well, the majority of them are throwing them in a dumpster because the education's not out there on what to do with it. People like us can take that and we can create a product that is then used in a beneficial upcycling process that it's not waste. Now the only thing wasted is the bag you had it in. Well, okay, that's a lot less by weight and volume, and I don't know how much that bag makes when it goes to the landfill as far as greenhouse gases, but I'm going to
Yeah.
guess it's a lot less than the organic matter that was inside it.
Well, and like you're not in a position to do something about that. So
that's not what we do. So
maybe somebody else can figure out something on that, or we can, But you're doing what you can with what you have available, doing what you do. What do you think, overall, if your kind of philosophy and your type of operation was happening all over this country, what do you think we could bring food waste down to?
We are, we're definitely interested in doing it in every state in this country. That's what we're doing. We're not selling our equipment. We're not sharing it with others. And I would, every one of our facilities with the way it's set up right now can handle 50 to 60 semi-loads a week. And we plan on building two a year, every year moving forward. We have our second one going in first quarter of next year. We have another one that we're planning for third quarter. So we plan on a first quarter and a third quarter every year moving forward, just depending on where we can find the people that are interested in having us do it.
So your vision is big.
Yeah, we think we can make, I tell people, they go, well, where's the market end? I don't know. Where's the dried canola market end? Where's the dried cottonseed market end? Those were all byproducts. Those were all waste products before they became an industry, right? Before they became a commodity and there was an industry built around them.
Yeah.
They were a byproduct. Why can't we do the same thing? Mm-hmm. It takes somebody to do it, and we're pushing to do it, and that's what we want to do. We plan on doing 2 facilities a year, and by first quarter, we're planning on handling 120 loads a week just in the Northwest. And those are semi-loads. They're 25 to 30 ton semi-loads. That's, you guys do the math.
Yeah.
20 semi-loads at 30 tons is 600 tons. So if we're doing 100 of them, we're doing 5 times that. So we're 3,500 tons a month or a week. That's really what we're.
So if your vision continues and this spreads across the country, you could, with your system, drastically change the future of this food waste problem here in America.
Well, I think, we as a group could change it, right? I can't do it alone. I can process it, but we got to have the customers that want to buy it. We've got to have the understanding. We've got to have the quality control behind it, right? We can't just go blatantly depackage whatever we want to depackage, no quality control rights, right? We've got to make it a standard, just like those other industries that I mentioned earlier. They have a standard. Everybody knows when they're buying it. They ship it by the rail car. Our plan is to ship it by the rail car. Like that's our plan. That's what we want to do. We know here at home we could use another 1 million tons. We'll ship it here by rail car for another 1 million tons. Like we'll do that because these people here, we know they'll feed it. They understand it. Will other parts of the country understand it? I bet they will, but it's going to take some education. It's going to take some understanding and some quality control and some, just time spent. So for us, as we grow it out, we're going to ship it back to the PNW because we know that market's here. Mm-hmm. And then as we educate other parts of the country on what we do as we build facilities there, then we'll start divvying it up.
How did you get started on all this?
On all this as far as what?
Yeah. Well, the food upcycling that you're doing, but even before that, what's your background in farming and where'd you grow? How'd you grow up? What'd you do?
Oddly enough, I did not grow up in farming at all. I grew up third oldest of 13 kids in a single wide trailer in Danville, Illinois.
Wow.
It is the, it's not an ag world. It was, I grew up in a very poor community in a very rough neighborhood. And I was just joking with Root before you got here. I grew up as one of the kids diving in the dumpster to get the day old bread out of the dumpster because we couldn't afford it. And my mom, my dad lived in Oregon, and my mom was, she was married, remarried. Things weren't going that great. She had a lot of kids. I was maybe a bigger handful than, than she wanted to deal with at the time. So she sent me to live with my dad, that I frankly had only met one time prior to that. And I lived with him for a year, and then him and my stepmom kicked me out. And, the one thing I'll never forget is my dad came out to the kitchen and said he's not losing his wife over his worthless son. I was 13. And I was just like, okay. I went to a friend's house and said, hey, I need to borrow your phone so I can call my mom and get home. And they loaned me the phone. I called my mom, and she was like, I don't have any money. Like, I can't get you home. Like, we're 2,000 miles away. I can't get you home. So my buddy, his stepdad showed up that night and said, hey, you can stay with us. And I stayed with them. The next morning I got up, they made breakfast. They raised cows. He owned a mobile slaughter. He's a great guy. And they didn't have a lot of money either, but while we were at breakfast, he just said, hey, I got an idea. Why don't you just stay with us? And I said, well, I don't know. I should go home. And he called my mom, and over a 10-minute phone call and a fax machine, he had guardianship of me till I was 18. And that guy changed my world. He taught me how to work. He taught me cows. He taught me agriculture. He taught me just, it wasn't about money. It was about lifestyle. And I remember I was 18. I asked him, why do you do this, right? He did mobile slaughter. He raised cows. He just didn't have a lot of money. And I said, why do you do this every day? Like, it's 20 hours a day, every day. Yeah. You got nothing. And he said, I don't do it for the money. I do it for the lifestyle. This is what I want to do every day. And he said, you'll understand money doesn't make it happy. It's doing what you want to do that does. And just that work ethic that he instilled in me from the time I was 13 to the time I was 18, he was always the guy I went back to clear through my 20s till he passed away here not too long ago. He every time I went back to Illinois, I would call him and thank him for keeping me from going back. But, he really changed my world by spending that time and educating me. And
you wouldn't be here today. Your life would be totally different. If you would have made that call.
Yeah, totally different deal. And, one of the most selfless acts I've seen, right? They didn't have to do it, but they did. And not being from the ag community, I didn't really understand what normal ag was, right? Yeah. And I read a book when I was 19 that was First Break All the Rules. Right? So it's a business type book a guy gave me, and he said, you should read this. And I came back to him a couple of weeks later, and he said, well, what'd you get out of the book? And I said, well, this, and this. And he said, that's not what I got out of the book. And I was like, well, that's what I got. Like, you guys are all talking about, like, this is the avenue, this is what everybody does, like, blah, blah, blah. Like, you want to talk about don't talk to a customer and not break the rules. My world, in my mind, it was like there really are no rules. I don't understand the ag. I don't understand traditional ag because I didn't grow up there. So I got an outside perspective of how to make it work. And,
which is needed sometimes.
Yeah, and the first company that I was involved in, the first company that I owned was Pacific Ag, and my partner was Bill Levy, and that business, I was 20. He was like 24, right? We were college kids. And that business was crop residue. All we did was bale crop residue. We just went behind the bean pickers and the pea pickers, and those we did crop residue. We didn't do contemporary hay. We didn't do Timothy. We didn't do that for the first 6 years of our existence. We just did, at that time, was waste. That's what everybody called us. We were the waste guys.
Yep.
And we went and figured out how to bale it, dry it, bale it, market it, everything. And we started selling pea vines against alfalfa for same money, right? Like all of a sudden we were taking something that they had to pay to get rid of or really caused them problems so they couldn't put their sweet corn right behind their peas because they couldn't plant through the pea vine residue. We fixed that problem for them. We were selling it for 200 and some bucks a ton against alfalfa, and they were able to plant their sweet corn a week earlier, and everybody was winning. So
makes good feed too.
Excellent feed. It's great.
We used to have a lot of peas up where I grew up. In fact, my dad, before he grew red raspberries, grew peas. So there was a lot of pea vine hay being made, and like my grandpa and his brothers used to do corn cannery waste, sweet corn waste for animals, back in the day, mostly probably because they were poor. You know, they didn't have a lot of money, so they saw an opportunity to get some feed if they did the labor themselves. So yeah, I totally get that.
Yeah, one of the interesting things, I went to the Waste Expo in Vegas this year, and I sat in on I had my 12-year-old with me, and we sat in on some forums, and they were talking about food waste and how food waste can't be handled on a commercial scale because people like your dad, right? Like they're small owner operators, they'll take it, but nobody wants to do it. Nobody can do it on a commercial scale. And we were about an hour into one session, and my 12-year-old looked at me and said, "What? They're saying that you literally can't do what you do every day."
And you're like, here, I do it.
I told my 12-year-old, I'm like, I'm really glad you're understanding. Like, you're developing what they're talking about, but this is what we do as a business.
Yeah.
We come here, we listen, we learn, so we can understand how to educate those people that it can be done on a commercial, industrial level. Like that, right now, a large majority of the country doesn't think that it can be done on a commercial and industrial level, but we're doing it every day. That's what we do. So there is the possibility. And it took a kid that had no idea what agriculture was around to figure out how to do it, and some really good mentors and some people that were willing to take the risk on trying it out and understanding it. And that's the community we live in every day.
Now you have your own farm too, right?
I do. Yes.
Down in Oregon.
Yep. Yeah. We bought our own farm. We raise our own cows. We raise our own hay. I just bought another farm, and we're putting in flowers and doing the greenhouse and the indoor grow and everything to raise fruits and vegetables, and all that stemmed from my daughter Addison, which is what our companies, if you haven't noticed, our companies are all named after my kids. So there's Addie's Alternative, and there's Wyatt, and there's Carter. They're all named after the kids, and that was because I wanted to do something that reminded me and everybody I worked with why I'm doing it. It's for them, right? So my daughter really loves flowers. So I said, you know what? She's 4, but let's go do flowers. So we're doing flowers, and we don't use contemporary fertilizer. We use compost. We're really on this. We try to do it as sustainable as we can, even though it's a little bit more work and it's a little bit that's just who we are as people, and that's what we're doing. And my boys have, they're 10 and 12 now, and they cut and stack and bale and rake, and they're working. They understand work ethic, and the one gift, like I told you, that was given to me was work ethic.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to. My kids are dirty. If you look at Addie's Alternatives website, like, it's pictures of my daughter Addison, and she's just filthy. Like that is the website. Like she's out there helping, working in the dirt, and they love it. They just have so much fun doing it. And as a lifestyle, that's the lifestyle I want them to have. Like they enjoy it so much.
As far as what you're doing and what you're accomplishing, does everybody seem to get it when they hear about it, or has there been some pushback on what you're doing to take, food waste and feed it out?
I think for the most part, between the suppliers and the customers, there's a lot of belief in it. Where we really struggle is the regulation, because there's, if it's coming out of the back end of a processing plant or out of the back end of a distribution center or something, typically it's referred to as waste through the government agencies, right? Because it's unused. So, the definition of DEQs is waste is unused or discarded. So if you just stop it when it comes out of the plant, then you're right, it's waste. But if you follow it down the road, once it gets into our truck, we're not buying waste, we're buying feed. That's what we're doing. And so changing that fine line between it coming off of their forklift or out of their plant and into our truck, there's a magic line that makes it feed, right? Because we're doing a different way. We face some problems.
So there's actually regulations that, considering the good that you're doing, it should be green lights. Like, as long as you're being careful, not doing stupid things, you're providing a huge benefit.
Yeah, but I get not to badger the the government, it's just education and understanding, right? I mean, we've had some hard conversations and we've had some struggle with it, but once you educate them about what you're doing, it's not waste. But to the quick glimpse, it looks like waste because it came out of an industrial plant. If it came out of an industrial plant, it's industrial waste. Well, only if it's not used for beneficial use. We're the beneficial use.
So they're trying to
part.
apply the regulations, the regs that would apply to industrial waste. They're trying to say, well, you can't do all these things that you're doing with it because it's industrial waste.
Yeah, we've faced that issue in the past. We haven't seen it in quite a while now, in a few years, because we've done a really good job of just reaching out to Department of Ag and letting them know what we're doing, reaching out to DEQ and letting them know what we're doing, reaching out to the municipals and Department of Health and just saying, hey, look, like, best practice. You want to come see it? Come see it. We'll show it to you. We're not trying to hide it, but it's not industrial waste. We've got quality control in place. We've got customers. We've got the paperwork and the tracking, and it's not a waste. And so, we've just, it's been an uphill battle. I mean, I don't know how much money we've spent on fighting issues that were regulations that were in place to protect people and to protect the industry. And I get why they were there,
right?
But sometimes to change things, somebody's got to fight through it.
Exactly.
And we did that, and it's been tough and disappointing in days, but
it's too bad that you have. I get what you're saying, that there are rules in place for a reason, and it's hard when you're a disruptor.
Yeah.
Right, as they talk about in business books, like you referenced earlier. But it's frustrating too when you're trying to do the right thing and good things, and some of those things stand in the way of that.
Yeah, no, that's definitely, and we've learned from it, right? Because now, as you say, we're a disruptor, and as we go into new areas, we've learned from the issues we've had before, and so now we're going in. I just lined up some meetings for next week for a new area we're going into to just meet with their governing agencies to say, this is what we're doing. Let's get ahead of it, right, so that it's not a surprise when they go, wait, you can't do that. Let's just get ahead of it and educate them on what we're doing now, so that everybody's on the same page and we don't face those same problems we faced before. And that's really what we've learned out of it is, upfront education helps us a lot on the back end, a lot less fighting, because most people want to do the right thing. Most people want it to be used. Most people want to do that. But if they don't know what's happening, they're thinking worst case scenario. And so we're really focused on, that's my job for the company, is really to explain to governing agencies and customers and vendors, like, this is what we do.
I was going to say, you're going to do big things, but you're already doing big things. And with your vision, you likely will be doing huge things as far as moving the needle on this whole issue. And so I'm just fascinated and looking forward to watching what happens. I think everybody needs to know about this. Especially anybody who cares about the environment, who cares about the food system, and particularly anybody who's out there talking or writing about food waste. They need to hear about this and know what's going on and be able to help and, make this a better solution. So this is awesome. And thank you for doing what you do and for telling us about it here.
Well, I appreciate it. I wish I could say I did it for some greater cause other than it was just the right thing to do. I mean, we're really lucky to live in the community we live in, and the Columbia Basin is one of the most, fastest paced growing, productive communities, and this area, being able to be, raised in this area and developed in this area, has really pushed everybody to just be better. And I can't take all the credit for it. I have some really good mentors and some really good people we work with that just pushed us to be better at what we do. And we're going to try to share that with as many communities as we can in the country. So,
well, best of luck to you. as you tackle this.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
This is the Real Food, Real People podcast. These are the stories of the people who grow your food.